Hey everybody, welcome to Google and welcome to our first ever YouTube Civics Masterclass. My name is Emily Keller and I am a strategic partner manager for Civics here at YouTube. We're so excited to have you guys here, both here at Google DC and those joining us on our live stream. We're really excited to be able to kind of connect with people in the States, but also here in person. And we really hope you come away from this event with a greater understanding of not only the value of YouTube, but how you can take advantage of that in your specific offices and organizations. So we're gonna go over a few things today. We're gonna talk a lot about how we approach responsibility here at YouTube. We're gonna talk to you about why you should be investing in YouTube and why it matters. We're gonna have our featured guest speaker, and then we're gonna talk about how we can help you use YouTube successfully. We're gonna hear from some great people, including Tim Katz, our global head of responsibility here at YouTube, myself and my colleague Carly, our Civics SPMs here in Google DC. And then Danielle Bainbridge is also gonna come and join and talk about her journey on the platform and kind of how she has become a successful YouTuber and creator. But first I wanna welcome up Tim, and he's gonna come and talk to you about our responsibility framework here at YouTube.
Thanks, Emily. Hey, everybody, and hi, everybody that's watching on the live stream. I'm Tim Katz. As Emily mentioned, I look after what we call our responsibility team here at YouTube, which includes a whole bunch of our different content verticals. So these are things like news, civics, YouTube Kids, learning and education, health, and of course, civics. So excited to sort of give you guys a little bit of the grounding about how we think about responsibility on the platform, and then Emily and Carly and Danielle will sort of do a little bit of a deeper dive on civics specifically. So I think many of you may have heard or seen this mission from us before, but our mission is to give everyone a voice and show them the world. And I think if you think about what that mission means and you sort of put it in the context of how we educate our users, how we inspire them, how we entertain them, but also providing equitable access for our over 2 billion users that come to the platform every day, the mission in and of itself is kind of civic. And so when we think about the work that all of you do and the information that you're trying to share with your constituents and your stakeholders, we think YouTube's a really great platform for that. So when we think about responsibility, everything we do on the platform is grounded in this foundation. We want everything that we do to make sure that our users are safe, that they're getting high quality access to information, and also that our creators can make it a great platform for them to reach their audiences that they need to on the platform. So the way we think about this is really starts with our creators. That's really the epicenter of where we begin, and across all these different verticals that I mentioned, as well as many others, it's really critical for us to invest in each one of these areas to make sure that the platform is safe and responsible. So how we think about this is we really root it in what we call our 4 R's. And this is the foundational thing we do for everything as it relates to responsibility on YouTube. So the first thing I would say, as you look at this framework, is to put not just some of the content moderation or other decisions, but even the ways that we think about paying our creators or our recommendation systems, et cetera, are all really rooted inside of this framework. So this kind of starts with the first R, which we call remove, which is everything, or I guess I'll go into the detail on it. But the first thing that we do is we look at every video that ever gets uploaded to YouTube. So that's over 400 hours of content uploaded every minute. And we want to make sure that they adhere to our community guidelines. So anything that does not adhere to our community guidelines gets taken down and is not available on our platform. So we want to make sure, oh, whoops, I didn't actually click through, sorry. We want to make sure that those community guidelines are allowing all of our users to stay safe. So anything that is actively harmful to our users, we're actually removing and bringing down from the platform. In terms of content, I think in the civic space, we can see a few different areas where we sometimes see takedowns in the space. So the first one's around impersonation. So I know a lot of you deal with this on a regular basis, where you see other people that might be impersonating one of the channels you manage or somebody that you work with. And we want to make sure that that content gets dealt with swiftly and taken down, as it could be harmful for our users and for the creators as well. The second is around our spam, deceptive practices, and scams policy. This is another one that we really want to make sure that we are providing our users with the protection they need. So when you get things, and actually on our external links as well, when you get things that a user might say, hey, click here if you want to get more information about this, and it actually might be capturing misinformation, et cetera, we want to make sure that that's dealt with very, very swiftly and is taken down from the platform. So that's the first R, is making sure that anything that people upload actually should be on YouTube and has a place here and is beneficial for users. The second, I'll give you guys a few examples, specifically in the civics area. So the first one's around harassment. So we see content sometimes get uploaded to YouTube that can actually be threatening to individuals, whether those are creators or others on the platform, political candidates, election workers, others. That is not allowed explicitly on our harassment and cyberbullying policies. The second is around hate speech. We want to make sure that content that promotes violence or hatred against any individual or group of individuals is also swiftly dealt with on our platform, taken down quickly. That could even include people at a political rally that might be dehumanizing a group, or other protected attributes such as race, religion, sexual orientation, et cetera, that comes down from our platform. Next is around misinformation. So when we think about misinformation that merits takedowns and removals from our platform, there's a couple of different categories here. The first one is manipulated content. So this prohibits content that has been technically manipulated or doctored in a way that's intended to mislead users. Usually this is clips that might be taken out of context. It could also be used using generative AI or other types of artificial intelligence, but it's really intended to pose risk or could have the risk of egregious real-world harm. So we want to make sure that we take that down swiftly. And then lastly, misattributed content. So content that might pose harm in a slightly different way by falsely claiming old footage, for example, might apply to a current event. So we want to make sure that if that's misleading in that way, that we take that down. And then we also have a violent or graphic content policy where we might remove violent acts that are happening and making sure that our users are safe if it doesn't have the appropriate context and information. So when we talk about context and information around a video, what does that mean? And how is it that certain videos that might show some of these areas are allowed to stay on YouTube and certain ones aren't? So if there's no context, we call it EDSA context, educational, documentary, scientific, and artistic context. If you provide this type of context on videos, it's meaningfully more likely that that content will stay up. So let me give an example of something. So let's say that you're a news organization covering an event, and you might say, hey, at this event, somebody said that once you hit a certain age, you are no longer allowed to vote in the United States anymore. If you just upload the video of just the user saying that, that video would come down because of the harm that it poses to our users. But if you provide context around that and say, at this rally, this person made this false statement saying this, or that's in your titles or your thumbnails or even in the content of the video itself, that context, we would then allow it to stay up on our platform because of the additional context put around it. So we want to make sure that users are able to generally get content uploaded to our platform, but it's done so in a responsible way. So the next R, so we talked about remove and kind of what is allowed or not allowed on YouTube at all. The next R is what we think of as raise. And this is about taking the content that clears that first bar and making sure that particularly on sensitive topics, things like a user's financial health, their physical health, politics, elections, other things, that we're actually raising up high quality sources and highly authoritative sources of information. And we want to make sure that those are the sources that when we are recommending content that our users are able to see. So these might be authoritative news organizations, elected officials, others that we're actually making sure in our recommendations, whether that's search, whether that's our homepage recommendations, what we call watch next, which is sort of when you're watching a video, what the next recommended video is, that's the type of content that is getting surfaced to our users. And we really want to elevate that. So when you think about the algorithms on YouTube and the content we recommend, it's actually very different for these responsibility verticals that I mentioned than it is for the rest of the platform. Typically for the rest of the platform, we rely very heavily on factors like engagement. So if you're watching a music video, for example, and you see a user's or watching that video all the way through, highly engaged, that's typically a very good signal for us. But in these responsibility areas, we say, you know what, engagement isn't always the number one way that we should determine what we should be recommending. And instead, we want it to be about raising these high quality, authoritative sources of news and information. Another way that we want to raise and provide a little bit more context to our users is in some of what we call our information panels. So on a lot of topics, and we have actually over a dozen of these information panels now, a couple of them highlighted here on the screen, that I'll walk through that provide additional information and context to our users and raise up those sources. So the first one you see here is during a developing news story. So oftentimes what we've found is that during a developing news story, if something is really breaking, that there might not be a lot of high quality authoritative information on the platform yet, but there might be high quality text that people have, just with text being a medium that typically can be produced a little bit more quickly than video. So we actually have this sort of text-based information panel linking out to sources of information above our normal search results if a user is searching for information about a developing news event. Another here, you can see a couple of examples here is we also provide additional context around whether somebody's a public broadcaster or what the sources of funding might be for that. And again, like these information panels aren't intended to be a judgment in any way, shape, or form about that, but just providing our users with additional information. It's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but just additional point of context for our users to make their own decisions about the content that they're viewing. So the third R, so we talked about remove, we talked about raise. The third R is reduce. And I think of this as working very closely in conjunction with the raise pillar. This is about reducing the borderline content. The things that we say, okay, that probably just passes our community guidelines bar, and we think that content should be allowed to stay on YouTube, but it isn't necessarily content that we want to be recommending to users. So I think of a good example of this as being, if you want to upload a video to YouTube that says, you know, I actually don't think that we've ever landed on the moon. We think that that should probably be allowed to be on YouTube. It's part of your First Amendment right, and it doesn't necessarily cause egregious real-world harm. But we also don't think it's the type of content that we should be recommending to our users when they're searching for moon landings or other things. So we want to make sure instead that's from NASA or other high-quality sources of information covering that content. We've spent a lot of time of really reducing this content over time, and you can see a couple of stats here. It's actually even lower now than what we have publicly available. But you can see something that we measure is what we call our VVR, our violative view rate. So we go and we look at, okay, in a sample of views that happen on our platform, how much of that content actually violates our policies but still got viewed? And at this point, it's less than 1 in 10,000 views that actually end up getting viewed on the platform. So we've been able to really effectively sort of this combination of making sure we're removing the right content, and then the things that we do allow to keep on the platform can still be found if a user really explicitly seeks it out, but not the type of content that we want to be recommending on the platform. All right, and then lastly is reward. And I think about reward in a few different contexts. Oftentimes this means monetization, so the ability to join our YouTube partner program if you're an actor in good standing and sort of the highest bar and someone that's providing that high quality information. But I think for a lot of our civics partners, this means other perks besides just monetization, which may not be the thing that you're most interested in. And I think probably most valuable is getting a dedicated partner manager. So this is Carly and Emily and Bridget and the team that you're going to hear from today are the people that are actually going to help guide you and be your coach for how you can be successful on the platform and really reach the audience and your constituents that you want to reach as best as possible. The other thing is you get access to a whole bunch of other features when you cross this certain threshold, and you get rewarded with things like content ID or other areas that we allow users to better maintain their copyright or other areas on the platform. So I think hopefully paints a little bit of a picture. This framework, the 4 Rs, is really like the foundation of everything we do. And so anytime there are new areas like AI that come up, and we spend a lot of time thinking about how do these 4 Rs apply to what we're doing, and how do we make sure that we're setting up the platform in a way that is most responsible for our users, for our creators, and also, frankly, for our advertisers and our business model overall to make sure that it can be really successful on the platform. So hopefully it gives you guys a little bit of context sort of as we go through the rest of the day. And I'll hand it over to Emily and Carly to start going through the rest. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Tim, for going through our responsibility framework. Now, Carly's going to join me.
Hey, y'all. I'm
And
Carly.
we are going to talk about our favorite thing ever, which is why YouTube, why you should be investing in our platform, what makes it so unique, so valuable, and such a meaningful part of a communication strategy. So more and more when people are coming online, they're logging on either on mobile or on desktop, what they are doing is watching video. People are consuming online video more than ever before, including they are watching billions of hours of video and generating billions of views every single day. And when they are watching this content, they are doing it on YouTube. So YouTube has a massive reach across demographics, devices. We have 2 billion, over 2 billion global monthly logged in viewers. We have over 1 billion hours of content watched every single day in over 100 countries and 80 languages. And even 250 million of these hours are happening on the big screen. They're happening on televisions and in users' living rooms. And different from other platforms and even social media, when people come to YouTube, they're doing it with the express purpose of watching video. The majority of these views are happening full screen and with the sound on.
So Emily said there's a lot of people on YouTube. The down low is who's on YouTube. It's everyone. But to be specific, 92% of US adults are coming to YouTube each month. So that's your constituents, your voters, your donors, your members, your mom, your cousin-in-law's brother, sister's uncle. Everybody's on YouTube. So why are they coming here? People come to YouTube as the #1 video search engine. So they're coming to YouTube to have their questions answered, whether that's classics from YouTube like how-to videos or deep dives on the Titanic or the functionality or lack thereof of the Electoral College. People are searching on YouTube to get answers to their questions. They also use YouTube on desktop, but also on mobile. And like Emily mentioned, very differently than other platforms where people may be watching video sound off. Most users of YouTube are watching video on YouTube with the sound on all the way through. And they take that content with them on the go in their smartphones and then additionally on desktop. And like Emily said, on our largest growing surface, which we call the living room. So that's sitting on the couch and hanging out watching YouTube. And the last thing is about live. So over 300 million live viewers log in daily on YouTube. So when you think about what that means, okay, they're watching live, but that means that someone who might have traditionally tune in live to a news channel, maybe tuning in live to YouTube instead. And you have the opportunity to be part of that conversation and catch those eyeballs. Okay, so YouTube users viewed authoritative news content more than 1 billion times across the United States in 2022. So like I said, people are watching content live on YouTube just like they would traditionally on cable or broadcast news media. YouTube's mission is to have civic content, and our net credibility ratings are placed as high or higher than all other social media platforms tested. So not only is YouTube the place where people are going, it's the place that people trust for their content. Okay, so the last one that we wanted to talk about, not that I'm, dissing on our competitors, but YouTube is first and foremost a video and search platform. So like I said, the #1 search platform in the world, that one's Google. You might have heard of her. The #1 video search platform in the world, that's YouTube. That's us. But it focuses on different metrics than social. So if you're thinking about your digital strategy or your communication strategy and you're like, I've got Instagram, I sadly still have to post to Facebook, there's that clock app, I've got X or Twitter or whatever you call her these days. You might be thinking, okay, how many likes did I get? How many followers do I have on my page? How many subscribers? But those aren't the only metrics you want to look at. So common metrics would be things like reach and followers from social media platforms and YouTube. You look at both of those. But your video metrics are things that you want to look into as well, things that are just uniquely YouTube. So that's things like views and watch time, how long they're watching, search metrics, what other topics, like in the research tab of YouTube, are your users or your viewers searching for when it comes to the content you're putting on the platform, and then the impressions and your shares. So remember that a huge aspect of virality is also by people sharing your content to their personal audiences as well.
Okay, and now I want to bring up our very special guest. Danielle joins us. She's a professor at Northwestern University. She is also the co-creator and host of PBS, The Origin of Everything. She is kind of an OG. She has been on this platform for a long time, and she is here to talk about her experience and her journey on the platform and answer some of your questions. Welcome, Danielle.
Hello and welcome. My name is Danielle Bainbridge, and I'm a professor of theater, Black Studies, and performance studies at Northwestern University. Outside of my academic research, I'm also a web series creator and host on YouTube, a writer, historian, and filmmaker. Today, I'm here to share a few quick tips on how to find success on YouTube through learning, engagement, and building your audience. I know that many of you are invested in using YouTube as a platform to reach your target audiences, whether that's followers, constituents, or just everyday folks. Through my experience as an educational YouTube creator, I can affirm that YouTube is in fact a great place to disseminate information if you just know where to begin. Although I've spent the last 7 years making online videos, I can't say that my relationship with the platform got off on exactly the right foot. It was 2006 and I was 16. I had a summer job in a hospital pharmacy that mostly consisted of throwing away expired bottles of aspirin and emptying a steady stream of tablets and capsules into a whirring pill counter machine. One morning, I was waiting for the bus with one of my fellow summer interns, and after a slight lull in the conversation, he turned to me and asked excitedly, "Hey, so have you ever heard of YouTube?" My coworker was a freshman in college, so I was desperate to pretend I knew what he was talking about. I squinted my eyes and repeated some approximation of the word he had said, but it couldn't be right. YouTube? Even the phrase sounded fake. And what was it? I didn't even know it was a website. And after seriously weighing all of my options, I decided it was ill-advised to guess an object from the universe at random. Perhaps it was a strange fruit, a type of music, a clothing brand, a town. So into that painfully awkward conversation, I mumbled, no, what's YouTube? "Ah, it's awesome," he said, showing some of the first enthusiasm I had seen from him in weeks. "YouTube is this great website where my friends and I go to watch videos of snakes eating mice." And that was it. He didn't expand his definition to tell me what else was on this mysterious YouTube. He didn't explain what it was or how these mice-eating videos ended up online, who was putting them there, or who even owned the snakes. But despite his slapdash sales job, I also remember the genuine light of excitement in his eyes when he described at length the marvels of mice devouring reptiles. This new thing had filled a void, not only in the belly of all those snakes, but in this weird, nerdish mind of a summer pharmacy intern. It clearly had incredible energy and appeal, and it brought him something at the click of a button that wasn't available anywhere else. I decided that day that this made-up word was a name for a website where teenage boys went to watch mice get eaten, and as a result would play little to no role in the rest of my life. That being said, I'm primarily a historian by training because I'm terrible at predicting the future, and YouTube has played quite a significant role in my work as a scholar, artist, and educator, and it could be the same for you too. So where do you get started? Well, here are 6 key steps, not all inclusive, but just 6, to building a better community on YouTube. So first up on the list is identifying your key areas of expertise. This may seem somewhat obvious, but it's not always the easiest first step to take. It requires you to be both broad and specific at the same time. In order to identify your areas of expertise, you should look to things like your listed interests and platforms on your website, but you should also think about some general bodies of knowledge that you could speak to with confidence. Questions you can ask yourself while identifying your areas of expertise are, what are my interests, goals, and ongoing projects? What are some common bodies of knowledge that I could speak to with confidence because I have expertise? And what are some areas of expertise that are in high demand in the public sphere? For example, if there are a lot of articles being published on a certain topic that relates to your work, think about how you can contribute to that ongoing conversation from your own unique vantage point. And lastly, consider which portions of your expertise would be most appealing to a general audience. Most non-specialist audiences are invested in topics that directly relate to their personal lives and interests. Try to identify areas of expertise that will connect with them and engage them. Because most of you work in politics, you have keen insights and access to the political knowledge that your constituents crave and also need to know. Lean into that in a way that is both approachable and engaging. Next up is identifying your key question for your video. It's crucial that you clearly articulate what your questions and objectives are at the onset of a project. I believe, and the YouTube team can correct me, but when I started on YouTube, a view counted as the first 30 seconds. And so that 30 seconds is your important time to really hook your audience and get them pulled in. The clearer you can be about this aspect of the work, the easier it'll be to create your piece later on. Some important things to ask yourself during this phase of planning are, what do I want my audience to know, learn, or take away from this video? How am I going to express this key question so that it is clear and immediately hooks my audience at the top of the video? And why should my audience get this information from me rather than any of the other endless number of sources online? There is so much competition in the online space that it's important that you are clear in your objectives from the onset. Do you want people to laugh, to think, to act, to reshare? Then you need to build trust with your audience. Trust is what gets them to return to your channel time and time again when they could get this information elsewhere. Third, you should identify some key cultural conversations that relate to your proposed key question or topic from step one. You should ask yourself, what are people talking about, thinking alongside, or debating right now that makes this the ideal moment to bring up this topic? And how can I contribute to the ongoing cultural conversations with my work and research? An easy way to answer this question is to look for comparable sources or pieces on a similar topic. Do some digging into what people are already interested and invested in online and figure out how to tap into that interest. Now, moving on to step 4, formulating a hook. This can sometimes be the trickiest part of creating new digital media or any kind of public-facing work. This is because we essentially have to combine all the work from steps 1 through 3 to create a hook that engages a general audience. You have to ask yourself, what about my initial research question is interesting to a general audience? And what current conversation am I contributing to by creating a new digital work? I know that hook can seem like a gimmick, but it's an essential part of creating a successful piece. For example, when I was writing episodes for my first show, PBS Origin of Everything, I decided that it was interesting and important for us to do an episode about the history of religious headwear because it was a common shared thread amongst a lot of religious groups, even though the reasoning behind the wide-ranging headdresses varies from religion to religion. But the title, History of Religious Headwear, didn't just have that hook that, would inspire someone to click on it and watch a 10-minute video. Even though I knew the information in the video was important and interesting, I also knew with a title like that, we'd be hard-pressed to find anyone to watch it. So instead, we reframed the episode with a question. Why do so many religions have headwear? We chose this title because we found through trial and error that episodes on race, gender, sexuality, and other forms of identity performed well on our channel, and episodes with questions as the title tended to have a higher rate of engagement. The result was that the same information was able to reach a wider audience. Another way to find good information for your hook is to look at search tools like Google Trends or even what's trending on YouTube and Twitter. This can give you a rough sense of what topics or conversations are ongoing so that you can tap into that when you formulate your hook. Next up is step 5, identifying your medium. Before you start making your piece, you first have to decide what that piece wants to be. Is the information you're trying to disseminate better suited to a podcast or a video? Perhaps it would be better and easier to interpret as a website. Or maybe social media is the best place for your budding idea, or YouTube. When thinking about medium, you have a few things to consider. The first is that the medium should match the content in some ways. So, for example, if the information you have is very text-heavy, perhaps you consider written forms instead of audio forms. Or if the piece you're creating relies heavily on visual resources and film clips, you should consider using video as your medium. But outside of just basic mirroring of content and form, you should also consider which medium is likely to be engaged by the audience you want to reach. If you're interested in reaching a younger audience, places like YouTube might be preferable to, say, an op-ed in the paper. But if the information you're sharing relates more directly to a mature audience, then consider traditional media outlets. You should also spend serious time considering format, which is related to medium but not entirely the same. Format is essentially the form that the project takes, like a response video, a dance trend, a video essay. What you're aiming for is a format that engages your audience, highlights the information you'd like to share, and is sustainable for you long term, especially if it's a series or a longer term project. Now, moving on to perhaps everyone's least favorite part of making digital media, or maybe I'm projecting because it's my least favorite part, and that is step 6, publicity. So you've done all the hard work of formulating a thesis, defining a hook, and creating a digital masterpiece, but all that work means nothing if no one gets to see it or interact with it. So you have to think creatively and strategically in order to get the word out there about your new piece or project. There are some very basic social media tips that I use when promoting my own work. First is posting to all of my own personal social media accounts and listservs, because sometimes word of mouth from friends and family can be a powerful starting off point and can help your work find a new home. In the early days of Origin of Everything, I relied heavily on my own social network to spread the word about the show and to share and reshare episodes. Now, this doesn't mean you should spam your loved ones and constituents with self-promotion, but oftentimes the people in our lives want to share and support our work if given the chance. Also, emails and social media are great ways to engage a broader audience of folks who are already committed to your work and want to see more content from you, so tap into that. Second, see if accounts that you follow that have large followings themselves would be willing to reshare or post about your work or do a collaboration video. This can sometimes be tricky since we don't often personally know the folks who run larger accounts, but you can form relationships with larger accounts by liking and retweeting their material or reaching out through the dreaded DM and forging a connection that way. If you have an established relationship with a larger account before the piece comes out, they're much more likely to share your work when you make the request. Also, try to see if larger accounts will collaborate with you on videos in order to reach new audiences. And third, think of clear, simple, and effective messaging for your posts that tell what the piece is about and how it contributes to ongoing conversations. This is a great time to start utilizing the hook that you formulated earlier in your process. The hook can also serve as a powerful marketing tool to get folks to click on or otherwise engage with your piece, or as one of my fellow creators calls it, clickbait for good. Create assets like thumbnails and titles that support the piece and make your hook front and center. Post regularly and often about the projects you're working on, using easy-to-access visual and audio aids that clearly outline what your information is and where folks can find the piece. Making things clear and accessible also guarantees a higher rate of success with resharing, which is what you want. Think about the last thing you reshared online. Whether you texted a link to a friend or posted it on social media or added it to the family group chat, what made you engage? It was likely that this article or video or site had clear and effective messaging communicated through the thumbnail or title that grabbed your attention and made you not only engage with it, but encourage others to engage with it as well. And that's what you're aiming for. Unfortunately, there's no quick and easy way to game the online algorithm so that your piece starts trending or going viral. If there was, then every video would have its own viral moment. But doing simple social media strategies and publicity can ensure that your piece does actually find an audience. The greatest thing about being a creator on YouTube is the potential to build community. Whether it's local, national, or global, YouTube is still a great platform for disseminating information, sharing new knowledge, and forming community around the things that matter most to us. To that end, I'd like to encourage you to center community in all the things that you do on YouTube. That means getting down in the comments section and responding to folks, or making videos that relate directly to the feedback you receive, doing polls, using the community tabs, making shorts, and keeping engagement high through constantly listening to your audience and finding out what they need to know. As I mentioned before, there are countless places for folks to gain online information. Your job is to convince them that they should get that information from you as a trusted and respected source. Don't take the gift of people's attention for granted. As an educator, I'm still learning alongside my audience how dynamic a learning tool YouTube can be. One of the most interesting parts of my work on the channel is getting feedback and responses from students, teachers, and self-taught independent lifelong learners about how they're effectively integrating YouTube into their own learning styles. As an educator myself, I'm still learning every day alongside my audience and online community how we can make YouTube an even better tool for serious and active learning, particularly because it's a tool that comes into people's homes and cell phone screens without traditional barriers to educational access like cost and location. I'm happy to be an educational content creator on YouTube at a time when the number of channels is growing every day and the types of shows being made and the topics being covered are expanding. And honestly, if I can go from not even knowing how to pronounce the website correctly to starting my own channels and shows, then you can too. Thanks so much for listening to my short remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions now.
So who has the first question for Danielle? Who wants to catch? Do it, Brenna.
This is really, oh wow. Okay. Hi, I'm Brenna Parker. I'm the digital director for Secretary Pete Buttigieg. My question for you, so you talked a lot about hooks on our videos and how we can get people to watch. A lot of the content that we're doing is really focused on giving a microphone to other people. So the construction workers in some of the projects, apprentices who are going to be in some of those projects. When there really is no hook and we're just kind of giving them the microphone, what suggestions would you provide there?
I think one of the things you could do, especially if you don't have like a defined hook in terms of a thesis or a hook for the video itself, is think about some trends that are happening already around the platform. So to make it more fun and engaging, I see a lot of people find success doing things like mirroring dance trends or things like that. If you can get the people you're passing the mic to contribute to that or to agree to it. I'd also say like finding the heart of the interview, because a lot of platforms actually have a lot of big success. Like I'm thinking of like Upworthy or the one with the animals, Dodo, I think it's called, where they're just doing interviews and they find a lot of success by making them heartwarming or engaging in a certain kind of way so that they feel very personable. So maybe you could like look through the footage before you actually upload it and say, what's the actual heart of this interview? Is it to humanize the people who are working on this project? Is it to give more information about how these projects are unfolding? And then try to make your hook or your title or your thumbnail related to that.
My question for you, I'm a YouTube administrator at the State Department for Channel Share America. My question for you is, when we're restricted in terms of actually engaging with our audience, what's a workaround really? When those restrictions otherwise kind of define the limitation of engagement, as in not being able to respond to comments, maybe even having comments off on the day-to-day, not necessarily building community.
Yeah. I think, so there are a lot of channels that don't have comments, particularly in the kids space. I know that they don't have comments, but I know that some creators find community through things like using polls or, putting up things. So this is a fake out that we used to do sometimes where we'd say, which episode would you like to see? And we'd already filmed all 3 of the episodes, but we put the poll up anyway, just to give people a sense that they're actually making a decision. So it's like, oh, I'm choosing what's coming up next on the channel. I'm choosing what I get to see. My voice is being heard in a certain kind of way. So there are sort of more static or anonymous ways that you can engage with people, and polls was definitely one of ours that we liked the most. It had the most engagement on the community tab for whatever reason. And then I would say, are you allowed to do response videos? Just curious. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like even say like thanking subscribers, for joining after reaching a certain bandwidth, like say 50K,
Yeah, exactly. So we do, in the first season of Origin of Everything, when we started from 0 subscribers, we used to do response videos to people's actual feedback to us. So if an educator said, I use this video in my civics class or in my writing class, we would shout that person out in the video itself. So sometimes you can find workarounds without actually having to get down in the comment section.
Thank you so much.
You also don't have to catch this. I'll hand it to you if the reason you're not asking a question is because you're bad at catching.
Yeah, if you're afraid of catching.
Here you go.
Okay, toss it, Carl.
You want to catch?
Thanks. Wait. Okay. There it goes. Hi, I'm Carrie. So I am in digital at the Department of Energy. And one thing that I really am, I guess is a question that's revolving around my mind today is we do a lot of series. So we have like these Clean Energy 101 videos that give people a little bit more insight and information into clean energy tax credits and rebates. And then we also have the Science Bites videos that allows people just a little bit more details about what are some cool science things that are happening, or like information on like some facts or factoids that they may have been wondering about, but like they needed more information about. All of that really goes onto our YouTube page, right? But we do a lot with playlists on our YouTube page. And so, what is the art to sustaining and maintaining like high reception of our playlist, because we can share the one-off videos onto social media and it goes great. But what is the art to really making sure people stick around for those playlists and know that those playlists are like going to be updated and it has the information or has some cool things coming that they would like to see?
Yeah, so we've had some success with playlists, especially around topical events, so things that are happening in the news. We did a Black History playlist that was really well received. We've done playlists on Women's History Month, things like that. So one of the things I find with playlists is that you should stack the deck a little bit. So the most engaging videos, if you put them at the top, that's more likely for people to actually stay around and watch the other videos that come after it. But also curating them in such a way that there's a thread or a theme to them. So if it's just that these are all connected because they all talk about climate change, that might not be enough for someone to actually engage with the playlist. But if you have a sort of strategy around thinking like, this playlist is about climate change, but action steps that you can take, or some other additional thing that people can kind of center around that playlist, then you're more likely to get engagement. And I'd also say we found some success like releasing the playlist around specific holidays, Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, things like that.
I was wondering, for kind of educational videos, history videos that are usually longer, but as their attention spans are going shorter and shorter, like how have you adapted your video content? Like what have you found has been successful and like still getting people to watch through or even just watch part of it?
Yeah, so history content is challenging. I think in some ways because there's so many ways that you can engage with history online. And so you have to essentially make this, I always tell people who want to make history content, make it more interesting than a Wikipedia article, because if they could look at it on Wikipedia, they're not going to watch your video. So you have to be revealing or unveiling something that they don't already know or they can't easily access. And the easiest way to do that, I think, is with deep research. But then there's also a storytelling aspect. And I think one thing that people really like about YouTube is that it's very creator forward. So there's this sense that you know the person or you're engaging with this person on a personal level, even if they're completely unknown to you. And so having personality in the videos, I think, is really important. And that's easier said than done. I was terrible at the beginning. I was scared of the camera, to be quite honest. But I think if you could have like a host or someone that it's centered around, or a storyteller, someone who's narrativizing it, you have a better chance of people wanting to watch it. And then also engaging in a deep research process so that it's not just the bare bones sort of dates and facts, but sort of a deep dive into something that people really want to know about.
I have one more question. One of the things that we're doing at DOT is investing in long-form storytelling. Just pieces of the president's infrastructure package, they're so complex that we can't do it in 15, 30 seconds. And my question to you, and I think everybody in this room can kind of attest to this, like what we have in the government is like small capacity digital teams. And I'm curious, what other best practices can you provide, but also can YouTube help in getting long form stories out there and amplified online? Because we don't have anybody at DOT dedicated to creator strategy, partnership strategy to get some of these like 5-minute documentaries that we're putting out. Do you have any ideas on how we could help get some of these YouTube videos out more to the public?
Yeah, so that is a part of this that I wish I had kept in the remarks, which is think about things that are sustainable for your team. So whatever that may be, we at like on the PBS shows I've worked on have always had relatively small teams, but we all are dedicated to video creation, so that's kind of a unique thing. But I would say you have to find a scale that's comfortable. So you're going to have better success, say, like making shorts, and doing it consistently than you are, say, making one long video and only posting once every 6 months. So the consistency is really what matters, and that people know to come back to your channel, say, every Tuesday because something new is going to happen, or create a sense of excitement around the longer videos. Whether that's like premiering them or having them like engaged in another way, or make them special. So it's like every week we post 2-minute videos about these projects, but then once a month we post a 10 to 15-minute video. And that way you can have some sort of scale and achievability for your team, but also really amplify and raise excitement around the longer projects.
Hi, Jake Miller from Department of State's Digital Strategy and Training team. We help our foreign audiences view our content at the embassies and consulates throughout the world. With the lack of TikTok access that our teams have, many of our embassies and consulates are using shorts to put out short form video. Any best practices for YouTube shorts, things that you've seen that have worked well, things that are is there an ROI for even reposting or using shorts? Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'd say being someone who's using shorts now, but obviously didn't start using shorts when I started on YouTube because they didn't exist. One of the things that I found most impactful in shorts is to stay with the storytelling. So even if it's 60 seconds or 58 seconds or however long it will be, you have to really have a clear idea of the story that you want to land. And then also to make them sort of playful and fun. I think shorts, more so than long form videos, are supposed to be really bite-sized. So the shorts I see that are less successful are when someone bites off more than they can chew and they say, I'm going to explain the Electoral College in 60 seconds. And it's like, oh, well, that's not going to exactly happen. But if you bite off like a miniature story or a really small part of what you're actually trying to access. And then also we found, I don't know if this is true for every creator, but a short that has a person, an identifiable person at the top of the short, tends to do better than the ones that are anonymous or just footage based, at least on our channel.
Any other questions?
I'm going to ask a question.
Go for it.
I would love to know, while we have you in the room, how you and your team plan. Obviously, you're doing a lot of planning for seasons in advance, but when there's a moment that you feel like you want to be part of the conversation on, how you move quickly to seize kind of the search traffic and all of the buzz around a certain historical or cultural moment.
Yeah, so that's tricky because a lot of our videos, they're 10 to 15 minutes. So they take a long time to research and write. And so the whole process from beginning to end usually is about 4 weeks for one video, but we're doing multiple videos at the same time. But if we're trying to capture something that's happening right at the moment, we could have other kinds of engagement. So we post on the community tab, we make shorts, we do things that like actually address it, or we speed up the process of a video. So during the pandemic, we had one video about the economics of pandemics. And that was sort of timely because at the time we thought it would be over in a few weeks. And so we thought we really have to rush to get this out. So that, I think we just prioritize them over other videos. So if we have something that's already in the schedule, we'll prioritize the timely thing over the other things in the schedule and reduce the amount of time that it takes to produce it. So maybe make it a 1-week process or a 2-week process instead of 4.
Any other questions for Danielle? Yes.
These are great.
Thank you. My name's Ryan. I'm from Leader McConnell's office. Have you, like, building off shorts, have you had any success kind of teasing up episodes with shorts and then getting people to stay longer and kind of like linking them to push them to the longer content? Because we're having an issue. We give daily like a 9 to 10 minute floor speech. So we've been trying to use shorts to like put out clips of the most important part on national security and then trying to get people to go to the full thing where they can see the full thought in speech from the leader.
Mm-hmm. We actually usually do it the reverse way. So we release the video and then release the shorts to support the video. So we let the video have its moment, usually for about a week, 6 to 7 days, and let the traffic naturally go to it, and try to highlight and amplify it as much as we can, try to engage in the comments, get people going with that video, reshare it, and do all those social media strategies. And then we start submitting the shorts to support the longer video to say, oh, here's, a highlight clip from the longer video. If you want the full story, go here. So we usually just reverse the order. I'm loving
my
these.
turn to catch.
I need some for my
Aren't
classroom.
they amazing. I love the catch boxes. Okay.
Hello, Maxine, also at State. How do you balance picking topics that your audience will like and following on trends with topics that you are purposefully wanting to get out there, messages that might be close to your heart or fulfill your larger goals?
Yeah, so we usually call those episodes like hero episodes, the ones that we really want to see get out there, and we're really excited about, and we really want them to get attention. That usually is a matter of just trying to find the right framing. I think when you have that passion project of something that you really, really care about and you want people to know about it, like, for example, we had a video on the history of the census in advance of the 2020 census, and history of the census, even to me, sounded boring. But I thought, people should know what this is about and, why you should participate and what the history of this particular survey is. But it's a matter of trying to meet people where they're at. So our audience doesn't respond well to history of type videos, but they do respond well to things that deal with identity. So things that deal with identity, race, culture, gender, sexuality, etc., always perform well on our channel. So we changed the question to, why does the government ask you your race? And then we did a history of what the actual census is, how long it's been in place, what was upcoming, etc. So I think it's a matter of just trying to balance what you already know from your data, like what people are engaging with, what they're looking for, what they're searching for, with the question that you have, and finding that middle ground.
Thank you.
Okay.
You guys are great. So much more talkative than my students.
Do we have any other questions for Danielle? Anyone?
Yeah, of course.
Hello, thanks for being here. My name is Renee, also with State. I love the art of a good brainstorm. How do you break through a creative space where the ideas are not flowing? I'm curious your process.
Yeah. So my process is extremely messy, so I don't want anyone else to mirror it, but I keep a lot of notes on my phone. I keep a lot of saved articles, things like that. So if I see something and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting topic, or that would make a great video, I just keep saving it always as a backup, so that when I do hit that rut of, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to make next, I have somewhere to go to look for ideas. I also think it's a matter of talking to your team and saying, we're championing the best idea. It doesn't have to be my idea. It doesn't have to be the host's idea. It doesn't have to be the producer's idea, but it should be the best idea out of the group. And so what that means is trying to follow not only the data of your channel, but also thinking through like how to collaborate. And I think some of the best ideas that we've had on our channel actually came from other members of my team who pitched it to me and said, you should write about this, or you'd be great to talk about that. And I think that's one of the most helpful things. But I would say in order to get through the hump, the easiest thing is to just save always. Save topics, save ideas, keep a place where you could jot them down, and return to them often.
Okay. Anyone? Going once?
The show's not over yet, but
Yeah.
Danielle's show is.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. And now that the really fun part is over, you have Carly and I again. But we're here to talk to you about how we can help.
So, like Tim said, the real value of being part of the civic ecosystem here and being a partner at YouTube is that you have us. So, Emily and I support the US Civics team here. We split our portfolio mostly on party lines.
Mostly, few exceptions.
So, I have DoD and all right of center partners, and Emily has everybody else.
Yep.
And so, one of the things that we can do to be helpful to you beyond attending things like this is be around to answer questions. We know it's not always easy to navigate things, whether that's product questions, strategy questions. We can help provide education, kind of like this. If you represent a group like a member organization, or you have other PIOs, comms directors, digital directors that you want to bring YouTube strategy to, but you'd love to bring in an expert, we can help with that, whether that's workshops and trainings and events. And we do provide reactive support to technical issues. We are not engineers and we don't know how to code, but we do know someone who does.
We have a lot of friends who code.
So we're able to help you with that. And then as always, we're here to help plan strategy. Like, our goal is to build on the already existing wonderful civic ecosystem on YouTube, whether that's political discourse, news, historical information. A lot of you are subject matter experts on the things that our users really want to learn about. And so we want to help you be successful in doing that. So if you have questions about the fun stuff like strategy and cool videos and things that are going to make people laugh, or an architectural digest style tour of the Capitol, cool. If you want to ask me questions about thumbnails and titles and SEO and what to put in your metadata, less cool, but I will still talk to you about it. And so those are some of the ways that we're here to be helpful to y'all. So y'all might have heard this. I don't know. It is 2024. It's an election year. I'm not sure if y'all are aware. But because of that, it also means that folks like you are definitely at a higher risk for bad actors who want to get into your YouTube accounts. And that's not what we want to have happen. So we really encourage you, since we have you in the room, to take your account security seriously, preferably every year, but especially this year when, a huge portion of the world is voting, but especially folks here in the US. So turning on your enhanced safe browsing through Google, changing your password regularly. If the password is the same as it was the last time there was a different digital director, it's time to change the password.
It's been time to change the password is really what she meant.
You can definitely take a security checkup. Google provides that. You can just do that through YouTube. And then a few things also, if you're not doing them, now's the time. If you use a .gov email account to manage your YouTube account and that person leaves, really hard to get back into that. So we recommend using a Gmail. And yes, we are biased, but we do recommend using a Gmail.
But we'll have so many more ways to help you if you use a Gmail account.
But it's best to have a dedicated email for your channel. So instead of it being carly.eason@house.gov, it would be Representative Emily Keller's press office at house.gov, which, who knows?
Did I just get elected to the House of Representatives?
You
I
did,
love
by
that.
me.
That was so easy.
And then make sure from there using channel permissions to give access to team members. So giving access to yourself, but also creating redundancy. As many of you know, the world of government and politics is slightly volatile. So your offices change, people leave, people come and go. So having redundancy on your account is incredibly important. So even if that means that your chief of staff has access to it in addition to you, even though they never log on to YouTube to actually do anything other than watch sports, it's helpful so that if you leave or if someone leaves, you're not going to lose access to the account. And the last thing is checking your users and access levels. Don't let the disgruntled guy that you used to work with take over your YouTube channel. Make sure you remove them when they leave your office.
Please, we beg of you, make sure you do that. So we have a few additional resources if, our smiling, lovely faces are not enough for you. We also do recommend our Creator Academy. Believe it or not, there are YouTube videos on YouTube that are all about their helping you. We have guided tutorials for digital teams. We have video tutorials on the creators channel, and we have additional videos on things like product updates. I also love and respect to everyone who wants to email me all the time. I will always answer your emails, but we do have a help center that has a lot of robust information. It can answer a lot of your technical questions. It can help troubleshoot a lot of things. And sometimes I'm a little embarrassed to admit how often I refer to the help center before I reply to your emails. So, you can also take a look at it. And you should all have access to chat support to get in direct contact with a support team from the Help Center. If you want to read more about our community guidelines, they are also available. Tim talked a lot about what we do and do not allow on the platform, and our community guidelines is where you can find that outlined. And then, brand new, we now feature our trainings from this very team on YouTube, believe it or not.
Emily's face.
Yes, this training will also be available to rewatch on youtube.com, on the Google Civics channel, so you can watch them all in full. You can go back, see what advice we gave, see what advice Danielle gave you. It will all be available on youtube.com. So definitely take advantage. But if these resources aren't enough, you still have questions, you want to do a deep dive on your channel, you have specific questions about your goals, your mission, you can get in touch. You can have chat support. That will help you more with your technical issues. You have a little problem, you need some help. Chat support can help you. But also, our lovely team Alias, you can reach us all, youtubecivics@google.com. We're here to help. We're here to answer your questions or to set up a call and go a little more in depth.
Yeah, or if you want to talk about, royal family drama, what's happening on Bravo,
can do that too.
I'm available for those things as well. This alias reaches our inboxes. And so also, if you have our direct emails and you ever don't hear from us, perhaps you're having the audacity to go on vacation, loop in the alias and someone else from our team will get it. youtube-civics@google.com. And now,
if you want to ask questions of the YouTube team, we are here to answer any of your questions. There are more catch boxes.
Up front, I think first.
I believe in you. There we go. Thank you. So, one thing I know you said earlier is that YouTube, or the living room, is YouTube's fastest growing surface. Does that mean that it is actually growing faster than YouTube Shorts is on mobile? Or how would you sort of compare how that is growing compared to some of the other metrics and ways of engaging with YouTube content?
So the surface of living room is the fastest growing, which includes shorts and traditional VOD and live. So if you can think about it, there are actually people who are sitting in their living room scrolling through the shorts feed on their couch, which
people do that. I know you don't believe me, but they do. I know it's.
I have someone in the back saying I do it. She said she does it. And yeah, so it's more so that surface is growing across all content types and all surfaces of different ways to upload, whether that's VOD, live, or shorts, that the living room is the largest growing. And so when you think about that, that's smart TVs, that's PlayStations, Xboxes, anywhere where you can get to YouTube. People are really using that and tuning in there versus, traditional television or streaming services. Question in the back.
Hi, I work for a member of the House, and we're trying to get our YouTube page up and running, get people excited about it. Any tips that you can share from members that have made their page pretty engaging? How often are people uploading stuff? What are some good practices?
So I'm gonna ask you a question, which is: are you starting a new channel from scratch, or are you trying to revamp a channel that already existed?
Probably revamp it. So it's not starting from scratch. So there are stuff already up there and there are videos and stuff, but we haven't been using it for some time, and we really just want to do more with it.
First, I would say this is a common thing. So
very, very common.
For all the other folks in here who have a YouTube channel for a member of Congress, you're probably like, I've been there, or I might be there tomorrow. So this is common, and we would love to see members use YouTube more. So we're here to help you with that.
I would also encourage you for your first step to look at the content that's already there. How much of it do you still want to be there? Is it organized? Do you want to go through and maybe do something like add a watermark, playlist? Do you want to go through, archive those videos, get the channel in a really good place, and then think about what is sustainable for you? YouTube it's really about consistency and communication with your audience. As you think about what kind of content do we want to do? How often can we do it? It is better to just be realistic about what your team has the capacity for, what is your approvals process like, and then stick to kind of a consistent schedule. If you can only upload like a video a month, that's fine, but pick the same day and time and kind of just have that open communication with your audience. And then as well, like we call it the channel branding. Do you have the handle that you want for your URL? Do you have the right like channel banner, your profile photo? Does it match your website? And just kind of making sure that your online branding is consistent across all of your platforms, including your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think the other thing to think about, and I think Danielle hit on this about consistency and why it's important to be realistic, is being consistent doesn't just build trust and like create muscle memory with your audience, but it also does that with the algorithm. So it's kind of twofold. So it's like, yes, your audience knows when to come look for content, but the algorithm is also going to reward people who are consistent. So that's another factor when you're thinking about being realistic in your uploading. Taking a 3-week hiatus is more damaging than saying, okay, let's just regroup and say I can only upload once a month instead of trying something else. I think another thing is looking at like, where are you already capturing content? So if your member is participating in committee hearings, all the committees are already on YouTube. We work with them all the time. So is that a place where you can clip something that they said in a committee hearing and putting it on in a short, and then in a short you can link back to the VOD. So and pushing them there, using existing members or other committees or caucuses that are doing well on YouTube to help them highlight your member and direct traffic there. And then I think the other thing is that, especially with the growth of short form across the social media ecosystem, you can use YouTube as your end destination. So if your members on TikTok, seems like that's a small group, or if your members, posting on Reels on either Facebook or Instagram, directing them from that short form video to the long form on YouTube will get them in the habit of going to YouTube for longer form content, even if it's not from Shorts, even if it's from X or from Instagram. So I think becoming a place where when something's happening, your page is the destination that folks are going for information, and thinking about it that way and what are the areas that you want to speak on when it comes to that will be helpful when you're thinking about planning your strategy. Up front.
Yes. Hi, I'm Angela. I oversee the White House YouTube. So my question is, and I know, Emily, we've talked about this before, but our YouTube feed is pretty flooded with live streams, and we're trying to get like new, fresh content that isn't live stream onto our page. And sometimes I feel like because it's just, there are so many live streams all over it, that it's not giving the opportunity for our brand new content to succeed. And I'm sort of at the point of, do we find a way to strategize the existing account, or do we start thinking, is it worth making a new account? Yeah, potentially.
Would love to talk with you more in depth on this, because I have some thoughts specific to your channel, but we do also have some like general like live stream best practices. When your stream is done, it gets converted to a VOD. VOD is video on demand. If I didn't, that was very insider baseball, I apologize. But it's a normal YouTube video. Making sure you're doing things like trimming the hold screens at the end, making sure you're adding chapters. I do really recommend that with like archive live streams, making it so people can skip to different events and like add the chapters. I think also making sure, you have a very specific case in that you have a lot of live streams you stream every day. They're very specific. I think thinking about when you have those hero videos, that special content that isn't originating on live, what is your rollout strategy? Are you going to make it the hero video on the channel, or what we call the channel trailer for people who are not subscribed coming to your channel? How are you organizing playlists and the shelves on the channel, and kind of like updating the way your channel looks? So there are a lot of things, and we can talk more specifically about the White House channel, but I think like marrying kind of your rollout of that hero content with the live stream best practices will help both.
I think another one that is kind of a newer feature that a lot of people don't know about But since, like you said, live, and because you have so many lives, your users and the algorithm are used to pushing out live content and finding live content on your channel, is testing out a premiere for one of your traditional long form uploads. So basically, you get a countdown, you get a link. It does the same kind of vibe as a live, but you can promote it in advance and then draw people to the premiere and kind of generate that buzz. But for an audience that's really already got that muscle memory of coming to a live feed, they're going to get that experience, but then they're going to find this is a video that's not alive.
Yeah. And if you're looking for examples of good premieres, this is going to sound really cheesy, but the answer is to look at music artists premiering new music videos. Taylor Swift does it every time she drops a new
We're
music.
Swifties here on the Civics team.
We're Swifties on the US Civics team. If you're not a Swiftie, like, ugh. But you can kind of get a really good example of how they generate excitement about a new video using the premiere feature, especially because you can get the video URL like before the video is public, and you have a place to send people before you're ready to actually have that video be live.
And I think for this audience, premieres are uniquely helpful, especially when you think about how you're leveraging your YouTube channel as part of your press strategy. So not just your digital strategy or your comm strategy, but if you're, putting out a press release that's like, we're going to announce this new video, or we're going to launch this, you have that link in advance that then reporters can go to and find it, so that they're also covering it when it's happening, when it's getting uploaded, versus you uploading the video and then sending a press release out. So I think it's another useful strategy or tool to have in your tool belt beyond communicating just with. We know that a lot of civic partners are looking to get in touch with general audiences, specific audiences like press, other members, other staffers. So thinking about how you can leverage it for that as well. I think I question in the back. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do green in the second row.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you. I'm Kate. I'm also at State. So my question's about AI and responsibility, and the conversations that you guys are having around how to factor in AI when looking at making sure that there are credible, trustworthy, authoritative accounts on YouTube. We're starting to have this conversation internally. At this point, it's almost possible to create a full video that looks pretty legit, right? But then also you could just do like color correction in AI. So like how does YouTube look at, people disclosing if they've used AI, how that affects the account's credibility with audiences, what that says about the content? There's like so much here.
Amazing question, and I'm so excited to answer it.
What a perfectly timed question.
So we actually just launched what we're calling our AI labeling. So the way that will work is there's kind of, just like if you're in your YouTube upload flow and you're like, click, 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 I want it to go to this audience. It is made for kids. It's not made for kids. You'll now have the ability to disclose whether the content you're uploading was created with generative AI. So that could be something like you used AI to, basically it specifically relates to the likeness and image or voice of a real person. You don't have to necessarily disclose if it's like, Joe Biden riding on a unicorn would be sick. Not possible. There are no unicorns. So that kind of thing is like kind of omitted. But for things like whether you're using a fully generative AI experience of what it would be like if all the trees died tomorrow, right? That kind of thing, you can disclose that. And then the self-disclosure will trigger a label on the video. The video, kind of like Tim said, it's not meant to assign judgment. It's just to provide information. We're not saying it's good. We're not saying it's bad. We're just saying it's AI. And I think that we expect that a huge percentage of videos in the future will be made with some kind of AI tool. I mean, AI is a very powerful tool for creating content. We know y'all are very busy. You wear many hats. You're, underpaid and overworked. So AI is a great tool for you to create your content and to really like streamline that. So we'll be using our AI labeling to really help educate our audience and our viewers to understand which parts of content are made using generative AI. And then there will be some things that are considered egregious harm. And if they do meet that threshold, the content would be removed from the platform. The next part that's important to know for this is that we already have a privacy disclosure complaint process where like if someone uploads a video of you against your will and it's harmful to you, you can submit a request and say, I would like this video taken down. So we now include AI depictions of your likeness, whether that's voice or your image, as part of that flow. So if you represent Secretary of State, you find a video and you say, we did not make that is not real, and it's harmful, you can submit the flow or get in touch with us as well, and we're happy to take a look at it. Up front.
So Michael again from Rep Moulton's office in the Democratic Digital Staff Association. I guess one question that I would have is how much, in the spirit of making sure you kind of schedule, set a schedule for yourself in terms of when you put out content, how much do we see the alert bell and kind of other notification methods really playing into how much people either engage more or kind of it doesn't make much of a difference for content like that? Like, does it matter if you have a, big sort of promotion is like, sign up for alerts every time our channel posts, or how does that factor into actual engagement rates?
So you're asking if you should say smash that subscribe and ring that bell? And
how much of a focus should it be in trying to kind of drive that as a major metric for your channel's success?
So the first thing I would recommend is going into your YouTube studio, seeing how many of your users already do it, and seeing, you can kind of dig into the data there and see like how are those users engaging and seeing where your audience comes from. So YouTube Studio is going to give you your traffic sources. Are they coming from search? Are they coming from Google search? Or email, other sources, off-platform, recommended, browse, all those features. See what's happening. Are they coming from the subscription feed? If they're coming from the subscription feed, then you're seeing a real value in having people subscribe and hit notifications. And then maybe experiment with your end card, a call to action. Ring that bell, smash that subscribe button, be a very traditional YouTuber, the OG YouTuber, I guess we would call them.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe for more content, and see if that makes a meaningful difference. That can be something that varies from creator to creator, channel to channel. And so we really recommend doing kind of your own A/B testing and see what difference it makes.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that every YouTube channel is going to have a different major source. So like some people, it's all coming from search. If you are, for example, the Smithsonian, a huge amount of their content is, their views are going to be coming from people searching about things that they're talking about. But if you're driving folks from off platform, from a press release, from an email list, from X, from Instagram, that may be where a lot of your folks are coming. And it could be valuable to say, while you're here, since I got you, subscribe so you'll hear from us next time. So just taking a look at those traffic sources and seeing how they change over time, because they will.
And just as a quick follow-up on that, I know earlier you were saying sort of the priority metrics that differentiate YouTube from other normal social media platforms. Likes was one of the ones that sort of overlaps, but was not seeming to be kind of indicative of a priority metric. Is that less of a priority than sort of like views or watch time in terms of how high you are in search results or rankings, or how does that factor in comparatively?
So again, this is going to sound fake. There are 80 billion user signals that the algorithm considers when deciding whether or not to recommend a video. Likes is one of them.
Okay.
But as always, views and watch time reign supreme. Like if you're like really looking into the health of your channel, really want to see what videos perform the best, the things you really want to look at are views and watch time. But everything does matter, and things like likes and dislikes do impact what's going to be recommended. But the other thing that I like to remind people is that the YouTube algorithm exists to surface videos to viewers, like not viewers to videos. The algorithm lives to serve the user, not the video. So the likes and the dislikes actually matters more on the user end of things and what kind of content is going to be recommended to them in the future.
Yeah, so a bunch of dislikes on your video is more likely to indicate that those users will be served less of your content than it would that other users that are not them, that did not dislike it, won't see it. I think we have a question from our virtual.
We have a question from Gwen. Question and comment. One day we'll get Taylor Swift to talk about voting rights with ACLU, and
Yes,
I'll
we
finally
will,
be
Gwen.
cool in my 7-year-old eyes. But seriously, can you talk about any specific levers to get lift into the news feed? We had some first podcasts get into the feed last summer, and we haven't had any success since.
I assume that here we're talking about the breaking news shelf is maybe what they're asking about. But if you search for anything that's happening topically, you may see like breaking news or top news at the top of that search result. Okay, affirmed.
Great, thanks, Gwen.
So,
No, Gwen.
there are a few, like there's a number of systems that detect whether channels are eligible to be in that shelf, and it's constantly rotating. So that one may be worth offlining with us to discuss the channel, what the content is, etc. Something that I think Ryan brought up earlier about shorts that I wanted to flag also is that when you're looking at your analytics on shorts, and this is also to the question about analytics, is there's actually now a measurement in YouTube Studio and Analytics that you can see when people swiped away or whether they finished watching. So you'll see if that hook at the beginning of your short is actually catching people or whether they're moving on. If any of you are like me and you spend the last 30 minutes before you go to sleep like this on TikTok, then you know that like it's important to get someone to stay. So looking at that and then seeing, okay, which hooks are working and seeing, okay, what do I need to change there on shorts as well. I think we call shorts the Wild West. The algorithm very clearly is different than the traditional YouTube algorithm. So it's trained differently. It has less data points to inform it because it's been around less time. So also remember that what you're putting in the shorts feed may be something that's different than what you would feed your traditional VOD YouTube audience. Anybody else?
Anybody? Going once.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, let's do this. All right, about copyright claims. I've seen these go down a lot, but
everyone's like, yes, he asked the question we were thinking.
Here we go. We used to get a lot of them against our channel, and like it would be music we had the license for, and they would basically file it, or our secretary is giving an event. A marching band may play a song in the background, and there would be a copyright claim against it. We're just kind of curious how YouTube is addressing that.
Okay, so love to talk about copyright. This is fun, and you are not alone. At least one person in this room has emailed me about this topic today. So you're not alone. Don't worry. The general thing is that if you have the rights to use the music, you have to make sure that that rights holder has whitelisted your channel. If you purchased a music license not in the YouTube music library, YouTube has no way of knowing you did that. So you have to make sure you're whitelisted. If you use kind of a service to get music, there can be a way for that service to whitelist you from their catalog. If it's a one-off, you can like talk directly to the rights holder. This is sometimes a straightforward process and not always, because you have to make sure you're getting the right rights holder and you have to make sure your channel is whitelisted. If it's something like it's happening live in an event, like it's a marching band or like the music that is playing before someone takes the stage, is it during a live stream or is it like post or both?
Do we ever get? I don't think we get it for the live stream. It's mostly when we like do like you said, we make it into a
video,
and then it just it gets a claim against it.
So my number
claim against us from J-Lo because of the inauguration. I think that's the kind of fun.
Thanks a lot, J-Lo.
Amazing. Wow. Thanks, J-Lo. My number one recommendation that is the easiest is to go into the YouTube editor and just trim it out. Like you can just snip it right out of there. Otherwise, like you can appeal. Do you know if it's, this is again getting specific, a copyright strike or a content ID claim?
I think it's usually the ID claim.
The good news about the content ID claim is that when someone who is a rights owner gets a content ID claim, they have the option basically to like ask you to remove it. But most of the time, they just are going to want to run ads on your content,
and they will monetize it and collect the revenue.
Which we get that most Civic users have ads blocked because they're government. So it can be worth it, but that's the only penalty. You're not getting a penalty against like the health of your account.
There's no penalty on the channel. You can appeal the content ID claim in the system and try and get it removed that way. But if you did purchase a license, you have like the rightful right to use that content, you can appeal it or try and get the rights holder to whitelist your channel.
I think we have another question from our virtual attendees.
We have a question from Angelo. He has two questions, actually. Do you have any specific tips for someone, me, running a channel for a city-level elected official? And is there anything we should be doing differently compared to a channel reaching a state or national audience?
I love this. In a former life, I worked with state and local government. So one, God bless you. You have a tough job. I think when you think about city, or really when you take it to any level, right? You're thinking about the community and what's target audience. But at the city level, thinking about the current events and what's happening to them. Like, there's a boil alert? Well, like I said, YouTube, #1 search video platform. So if people in your community want to learn about the boil alert, be the one giving them an answer. Create content that answers the questions of the people in your community. I think it's it's a more of a niche when it comes to a local audience versus a national audience. I think, if you're the White House or Majority Leader McConnell, you've got a lot more things to think about what questions people might be asking you. But I think that's something you can take advantage of. And then what makes you unique is, focusing on that. And then thinking about in your metadata, so your titles, your description, the content in your videos as well, how you can make sure that your content is discoverable to the people that are in your community, if that's the target audience.
I also think this is the perfect time to plug another wonderful Google tool, Google Trends. So Google Trends is also baked right into YouTube Studio now, so you can get those insights. But you can kind of get down pretty local, not like congressional district local, but you can kind of look at zip codes and counties and see what people specifically in your area are searching on YouTube and kind of what are they searching more, what are they looking for. And if people are asking questions, be the person to answer them, because then they'll find your video when they search it.
And then you can even look at things like as simple as when they're looking up the State of the Union, do they type in "so too" like people in the swamp do? Or do they type in State of the Union or President Biden's speech? So looking at those key terms to figure out how to make your content match to the audience that's actually trying to find you, I think will be helpful. Okay, last call for questions.
Going once? Going twice?
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. One more here. In terms of the metadata, what should we be paying the most attention to? What should we be trying or thinking through as we're setting that up? Like, is it title is far and away the most important? We want those first letters to count. Is it, tags are, an underused and underappreciated thing? Like, how do we make sure that our content is likeliest to be a good match for what people are looking up?
So there are two things that I recommend looking at. I'm going to answer. The first is what we call the package. So that's your thumbnail and your title. And that you're going to see how effective that is based on your click-through rate. Titles are king. You want to have the most relevant and searchable information in the title. The next is going to be your description. You want the description to also be very searchable. You want it to have the relevant information that is needed. Tags, they're nice. But
kind of like hashtags on other platforms.
Yeah, they're nice. The other wonderful tidbit I'm going to give you is that your title is front weighted. Most important words go first. If you have a series and you're saying episode 1, episode 2, that needs to be at the end of your title. It is the least searchable thing. It is the least important piece of information. Put it at the end of your title. Your title is front weighted. And don't forget about viewers. The majority of your viewers are probably finding your content on mobile. Think about how long your title is and if it's going to get truncated in the mobile feed. That's also really important. And the other thing is my personal recommendation, don't put the title of the video also in your thumbnail. You have a limited real estate to get someone to click on a video. Don't use it to do the same thing twice. They already have your title. It doesn't need to be in the thumbnail. Make the thumbnail a more engaging visual that makes someone want to click.
I think also what Danielle hinted on is, reframing what your content's really about, but finding a title that actually captivates audiences. We kind of view titles in two buckets: searchable titles. So like how to fix my microwave because I broke it. Or the other idea is what I never thought I would learn about my microwave today.
This is searchable and intriguing.
Yes. So thinking about testing that and seeing what works better for your audience, either A, B, but also just knowing that certain things are going to do better for certain types of content. So it doesn't all have to be January 7th, today's speech. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks y'all so much.
Yeah, if we don't have any more questions, thanks to all who joined us on the live stream. We missed you in person. But if you were right here in Google DC, we'd love to we have some light bites and some drinks, and we would love to talk with you a little more and have you enjoy some refreshments with us. So
thanks for
you very
coming.
much.